All right. Rao, I know it's been a long day for you, as it has been for me, but are you up to give us the tech update?
I'm actually, I spoke with Tomislav. I think Tomislav was going to do the tech update today, but if not, I can do it. I see Tomislav is here. So okay. Tomislav, you ready with the tech update?
Yes, I wanted to talk about our release of 0.13 and what is inside and what we are going to do next. And also, I want to clarify what we are doing with Web API. So let me share my screen. So here is so what we did with for the 0.13 release is, and this is alpha version. We consolidated all of the feature branches on which we were working, and this is basically everything what we have in this release is ready for the block merge, which is the next release. The part that is not yet inside is finalization for the block merge. So we will still run this release on the testnet. So Grinder will announce when he will start the testnet with 0.13. So, but we will still run in the single parent mode. But we should definitely see some improvements in the performance. In this release is also Rholang 1.1, and we have the new history or the new Merkle tree implementation. This is the biggest change in this release. What we were testing previously on LLVM testnet, we discovered that this is not stable enough, and we have some problems with the finalization. So now we will reconstruct, rearrange part of the code so that we can do finalization like more aligned with Greg's algorithm. This is our goal, and so Will and Stas will work on the DAG changes, and I will work on the finalization. So I'm hoping that to the end of the month we will have something that we will run on testnet, but we will need additional time to connect this finalization part or consensus to state merging. So we will definitely go to the April for the to finish up the finalization. In this 0.13, we have initial version of the new HTTP API, Web API, which is which will at the start this will be almost the same with almost the same methods as we have now, but with a different serialization schema. The important thing is that the Open API schema is will be automatically generated. So what we have now is manually written by Dan Connolly, which is a substantial effort to create it manually, and also is difficult for us to maintain and keep it in sync. So basically, what we want is when we have when we add some new stuff in the Scala code, we want to have everything synced and automatically generated. So this is the schema that is created manually, and now we will have the OpenAPI JSON endpoint where this will be automatically generated and available on the node. I want to explain how we are naming the API. So existing API is /API. For example, this is the status method. So for the new API, and all the other methods are in the same way, /API / some method. So for the new API, we are not changing anything on the existing API. So all the functionality will stay the same. So we want to enable users to choose when to migrate. We will try to keep all existing functionality the same without breaking anything which is not like really excuse me, which is not really required for the block merge. So what we are adding is the new naming for APIs, because later we want to move to the second version, and we will just want to change the number here in the V1 for V2. So the new API is /API /V1, and then we will have all of the existing methods. I just want to show how whoever was using previously the previous API, we will have a different encoding. So instead of using the name of the field as a type, now we have this discriminator field type, which shows the value of this field describing the type. So this is the difference. And I think I covered everything what I want to say. If there is some question, please.
Question about the URL specification there, API v1.
Mm-hmm.
Is this going to become an official RChain standard?
Yes. Because with the version 2, we want to unify gRPC and HTTP to have the same schema, and the only difference should be which protocol you're using. So if with gRPC, this can be protobuf. In the HTTP, this can be JSON, but the underlying objects will be the same. So this is the goal. So this is why we choose to call this V1, because our existing API is it's done somehow ad hoc before the mainnet. So it was not. It doesn't have all of the features like generating schema and all of that. So I'm considering this V1 as the first version that is really has all of the something that you are expecting from Web API.
I guess my larger question is RChain establishing a standard for access that includes V1, V2, V3, and with all of the version management that goes along with those V numbers?
I mean, we definitely want to establish some way that it's very easily understandable for the users, and also that we can manage changes in a way that if you have your DApp connecting to our node, the new version of API will not break your application. This is so that we definitely want to have some backward compatibility that is easily to understand, and with a path to upgrade.
Okay, so
yep.
So the idea of putting the V1, V2, V3, that's for the purposes of backwards compatibility, which means that the V1 will work on an R node when we get to V10.
Yes, maybe we will say that in one moment we want to make some API obsolete and just not used anymore. But we will do this in carefully, right? Without sudden changes.
Right. I mean, my question goes, I guess, more to, you know, I mean, Java put in the deprecated stuff, right?
Yes, yes.
And so is this the plan moving forward, that there's going to be a deprecation phase? And I mean,
Yes,
is RChain putting all these processes in place?
Yes, this is what we want to do. So if you are depending on the V1, this V1 will always be the same. We will try not to break in one version anything. We can maybe add something, but we will try not to break anything. So in the new version, we will introduce some breaking changes.
Okay, I understand. I was just concerned that, you know, these V numbers need to be managed, right? So, I mean, as long as you're doing that.
Yes, and we will have underlying API. We can change underlying API in Scala to be different, but with external access, we can make multiple endpoints or multiple schema. So yes, we definitely want to manage multiple versions from as external access, but we will keep only one representation in our Scala code.
Is there documentation on V1 somewhere?
Yes, we will first provide Open API schema, and Open API schema also support documentation. So we will enrich the source for the generation of the schema. Maybe we will not provide immediately everything, but over time we will put more and more information.
The documentation is in GitHub. It's called the code.
Yeah, well, you know, not everybody knows JavaScript, right?
I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
No, I like this direction. I think this is good.
Yeah, thanks.
So are there any other questions for Tomislav on anything that he covered?
I guess the V1 includes the operation for getting the price of the flow.
The minimum flow price, yes, includes, but the existing API also includes this.
Oh, okay.
So at the beginning, we will try to keep this both APIs updated, and then we will say, oh, now the V1 is more stable, have more features, so you can slowly move to the V1.
Is there a planned timeline? And I realize this question may not be answerable, but is there a planned timeline on the rollouts of the different versions, the different V numbers?
Not at the moment. At the moment, basically how we're thinking about this is that the difference between the current API and V1 is that V1 is more automatically generated. And then in the near future, V1 may have more features that would become available under the same thing. But in terms of the question is, what are we going to do, or when is the next version going to be coming out and all that? Like everything else that we do, we're first going to release those as alpha or beta for a period of time. And then once people have some experience of playing with it, at that time, we'll make decisions about deprecation timelines and all that. So, I mean, it does not make sense for us to now say, oh, there is this cadence of releasing the next 3 APIs or next 2 APIs or whatever. We're not there at the moment. But as we discover that things needed to be added to the APIs, or that the user experience, the developer experience is going to be better if we add something, we're going to do that. And then we will put the versions through the alpha, beta, and final type of a cycle. so that we have some user feedback, user experience, telling us when is it the right time to say, okay, this API is now done, and then the deprecation decisions will follow that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm just thinking about the people like RChain Toolkit, RChain API, DApp developers. I'm just looking at it from that perspective. And no, this makes sense. You've answered my question.
So the idea with the versions, basically ideal situation would be that we have only one version and that's it. This means that we covered all, and if something is needed, we just add new stuff and that's it. But it can be the case. So it can be the case that we need to make some breaking changes. And what we know now is we know that we will make the breaking change when we are unifying gRPC and HTTP. So we will simplify the API, and we know that this will be the breaking change. And I'm hoping this will be the last, so that V2 will be, the last that we need.
For the foreseeable future. That's the thing, right? I mean, everything evolves over time as we discover. I mean, especially, but you have to be sensitive, or the community needs to understand where we are with the platform. Right now, we're just beginning to engage with external customers, and we're just beginning to, build the ecosystem and all that. So there will be changes or requirements or requests to say, can we do this in the API? Can we do that in the API? That's the reason why I was saying what I was saying before, is that it's almost like the API is its own product, which of course is the main way for people to use RChain. So there is the RChain underlying product improvements, and then there is the API improvements. So we'll just have to manage that from a version and release management standpoint. And like Tomislav says, it's not something that's going to change every few months or whatever. But there will be, over time, there will be evolution of things. So that we just need to be aware of that, especially because we don't have enough user engagement yet.
So for example, I mean, we can give a concrete example. Right now, the APIs provide no ability for a developer to check and see if a given contract satisfies a given type. So at some point, we will offer that as a basic API call. But we don't know where that shows up in the sequence of other evolutions in the API, which was related to your question. We can't know the sequencing build because there are too many variables with respect to how to prioritize with respect to a changing market.
Well, and I guess it's normal as new features come out, the API changes. I guess the only remaining question I would have is the API, are there plans to put out the API as a separate product from the underlying blockchain?
I mean, I'm more thinking.
Go ahead, Tomislav, after you.
I'm more thinking that the Rholang itself offers everything that we need from the protocol perspective. So in the future, I'm hoping that the API will be the Rholang itself, so that we don't need to transform this to HTTP or something else. We will just use Rholang and communicate with Rholang. So.
I think that would be a great idea. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a lovely world. I wish we could make it so.
So we will accommodate. The idea is that we will accommodate whatever future technology brings some kind of instead of Google creating a protobuf, someone else can create their own version, and everyone will say, oh, we want to use that. And of course, we will just say, yes, we will also implement this in Arnold, and you can use it. So we don't really care about the protocol. We just want to support whatever people are using and whatever users want.
Yeah, so I mean, as an example, I don't believe that it's appropriate to have HTTP wallpapered over every possible ingress and egress of RChain. And very specifically, I strongly believe that we should have a separate Rabbit-based ingress and egress to RChain. Or if it's not Rabbit, then some AMQP provider. And this has been my position, since 2017. We're not at that point, but as soon as we have significant enterprise engagement, that will be a very natural place and a very natural architecture. And this API is an HTTP wallpapering, right? So it doesn't touch or address that particular approach. And there may and quite likely there will be other ingress and egress points that are either related to proprietary developments within an enterprise or in new standards within the community, right? And way back when XML was the hot thing, and then JSON was the hot thing, and then, right? And so it's not unimaginable that there's some new hot way to get data in and out or commands in and out.
Yeah. So my question, I think, is a little more pragmatic than theoretical in that sense.
I'm talking very pragmatic, right? Rabbit is not theoretical.
So I'm just wondering, over the next year, what is the expectation for this V1, V2, V3? Because work needs to be done, right?
Yeah, I mean,
so
go ahead.
Go ahead, Greg.
After you, my dear Alphonse.
No, I mean, basically what I'm saying is my answer to Bill would be ask that question 6 months from now, because like I said earlier, we're still at very early stages of customer engagement, and the customer engagement is what is going to dictate, at least for the rest of 2022, both the core features that we need to develop as well as the API changes that we need to incorporate. So at this point, we cannot answer that question. We don't have, like I said, planned out, oh, this is, certainly like Tomislav said, what we can say is that there will be a V2 that would standardize between the gRPC HTTP, and that will be a breaking change. That much we know. Is there going to be a V3 or V4 in 2022 or early 2023 if you take the 12 months from now? We don't know yet. We don't know until...
But Rao, we can say that. We know that we will not do that. So it's not the idea that we just create a bunch of versions of API. No, this is not the case. What we want to do is for users to choose, to be able to recognize, oh, I know what is the API, and I want to use a different protocol because I'm building the browser version, or I want to be more performant, and I want to use gRPC, or what Greg said, I have a different requirement. I will use some event queue library or a tool.
Yeah.
So,
so as much as things can be built compatible, it'll just be taking the existing version of the API and keep adding new functionality to it, right? So that much is clear. Whether there is going to be a need for next version of API beyond version 2, we don't know right now. But is version 2 going to get more and more functionality possibly within there? That's a possibility based on what we see in the marketplace.
I did mention when I originally asked my question that this may not be answerable, and it sounds like it's not it sounds like it's not answerable, and that's fine. I just needed to know.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I strongly want to urge people to consider that HTTP and gRPC, those are synchronous protocols, and they are not well adapted to bulk upload, as an example. So if you're engaging with customer requirements, which require heavy duty and bursty transmissions of ingress and outgress, HTTP is just the wrong tool for the job. And so, you know, my recommendation is that think of this as very scoped. It's scoped to a very narrow set of use cases that are not well suited for a variety of others. And, you know, if you are familiar with systems integration in the enterprise, you know what I'm talking about.
So my last comment here is I agree with Greg. I hate HTTP.
It's a technology we love to hate.
Yeah. But in the browser, we need to use HTTP. So, you know, we want to use browsers.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but mobile native is a natural thing, right? Native mobile connection to the backend is a very reasonable pathway, and that does not have to use HTTP. It often does, but it's not a requirement. So anyway, but we've spent a lot of time on this particular topic, and we do have other things to talk about.
Yeah, so before I hand over to Greg, I do want to speak to one other aspect, which is external validators and preparing for external validators. I think as we speak, Gurinder is trying to get the 0.13.0 version on the testnet, and once we give it some time, and like Tomislav said earlier, we'll have the multi-parent version early April is the current estimate. And once we have these and are comfortable that there is not any bugs, we will start engaging with folks to start practicing being external validators on the testnet, both within the community, you know, many of you who are very familiar with the platform and how to run nodes and everything else, as well as a few people that are probably new to the community but have been asking us about, is there an opportunity to validate on the network? So we're going to engage with them and start that process so that eventually when the next version, the multi-parent version, is ready and bug-free, we can relatively quickly go to external validators on the mainnet. So that's
and by the way, these are already DAAPI partners. So we're just expanding the relationship.
Yeah. So that's kind of that's another thing to look forward to, I think, both in terms of your own time commitment to, I know that some of the people that are here want to run validator nodes. And so we want to enable you as well as other parties to start experimenting down that path and becoming good at it. So and give us some feedback on what all we need to enable to have that process be smooth and comfortable and safe for everybody. And then move it into basically the fully decentralized network at the earliest or fastest pace that we can. So that's the next goal beyond the code development in terms of what we're trying to do over the next few months. With that, I think that's the end of the technical update, at least from my perspective, unless there are any questions, and I want to hand over to Greg after that. Are there any questions on the external validator engagement part? All right, with that, over to you, Greg. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
No, thanks to Rao and to Tomislav and the whole team. I know that they've been working incredibly hard, and it shows, right? We're getting the API structure is getting cleaned up, and the process is just getting a lot more smooth and clean and polished. So it's great. I love to see this work. But I also want to acknowledge that we've had really good engagement here at Metaweek. So I will say that the booth here at Metaweek was much more well attended than I expected it to be. I was actually shocked that people came to the booth after seeing me speak. In fact, what I said on the panel discussion was part of the reason why they actually came to the booth to find out more about RChain. I was very happy that our partners in Dunhill Bismark, who are on the panel today, also had a lot of wonderful positive things to say about RChain, and this is in fact why. So this was heard all throughout the Metaweek conference attendees. I also was very encouraged. We have been at 2 invitation-only dinners and events, and the engagement was actually quite remarkable. We had many people coming up to us and being very positive about what it is that both our mission and how we're approaching the mission. So I'm quite excited about all the follow-up that we'll be doing. We have essentially more than 40 institutions and parties that we'll be following up with. So this is I think the numbers are, if when you're talking to potential funding parties, you need to talk to about 100 in order to get one that pops. So we're starting to get the numbers in the right direction. So that's very good. And again, I will say that the sponsor of tonight's event came up to me personally and said that he wanted to reach out and connect because of what he heard us talk about on the panel. So it does appear that we're getting bang for buck in terms of our engagement here. I've been very encouraged. I've also been very encouraged by the having all the support. So having Rao and Ting here has really made a big difference, and it's a much more successful engagement because of their presence. And we know this. It's like both Rao and Ting are very talented, but the real strength of RChain Cooperative is our collective intelligence. And the fact of the matter is that it's getting more and more coherent, and I'm quite excited about that. Any questions about that?
Oh, this is all exciting news, Greg. So excited. I'm super curious to hear about what you actually did talk about on the panel.
Well, thanks for asking. I have to say that it was very difficult to find a core theme to the panel. So I just spoke directly to my experience as they began to ask questions about, what is a metaverse and where is the interface between metaverse and blockchain. We were very well positioned to speak to those kinds of questions. And it's like the strangest, weird pathway through history. The truth be told, I was hired into MCC to work directly. So MCC is Micro-electronics and Computer Technology Corporation. It was the first industrial research consortium in the US. It required Admiral Inman to scare Congress with the Japanese fifth wave in order to break down some antitrust laws so that companies like AT&T and NCR and government agencies like the NSA could come together and put joint funds in to do joint research. So I worked in that lab in my 20s, early 20s, and
oh my God, that's the Stone Age.
Exactly. Back when we were still writing dinosaurs, right? So the fact is, I was hired in under Kim Fairchild's group. Many people have probably never heard Kim Fairchild's name, but Kim was one of the pioneers of artificial reality. He and Alan Wexelblat worked with Randy Trigg, who was at Xerox Parc, So Randy Trigg did the artificial reality kit. Kim did SimNet single-handedly. So SimNet was an artificial reality environment in which you could do semantic network modeling and fly through it. And, it's like use all of the 3D space navigation to explore concept space. Alan Wexelblat was the editor of software, and which was published by MIT Media Lab, where he eventually landed a tenured spot. So these are some of the pioneers of artificial reality. There are many others, and we rub shoulders with Jaron O'Neill and many others of the time. And when I started working on this stuff, I did a lot of software that was oriented towards group work and virtual community space. And as I did this work, and I did it largely with an eye towards developers who were trying to develop large scale software systems and needed to have virtual presence as they were doing this. And we did all kinds of fun demos in which developers were collaborating in a virtual space. So it turns out that I did an analysis and just realized that concurrency was going to be the only way that those systems could actually scale to the requirements that they were going to have to scale to. Right? It's exactly the same problem that we were facing with RChain. How do you get this to scale? The only way to scale is to be concurrent. What are the right models for concurrency? And that's what led me down this path. So I spent a number of years at MCC working on Rosette, which was an actor-based concurrency model, to try to bring harness concurrency in a tractable way, and that led me to the mobile process calculi directly. So I could speak to my history and background. I started working in artificial reality and virtual reality, and realized I needed concurrency. Went off and did develop the concurrency models that could make real scalable systems. And now I'm full circle. I'm back here in the in the metaverse, the next incarnation of AR, VR, and the like. In the meantime, I could talk about the RChain scalability characteristics, and I believe that turned a lot of people's heads.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was.
That is so amazing, Greg. I mean, I think I've known you for like 7 years, and you just keep blowing my mind with things that you've done in your life. Just absolutely amazing, Greg.
Well, it's been a fun journey, but I have to say it was really a testament to Kim Fairchild. Kim pulled me out of Whole Foods Market. I was working as a cook at Whole Foods Market, and I would talk to the people who came in from MCC to get their lunch, and Kim recognized me and said, "My God, what are you doing working here? Come work for us." And that's how I got started working at MCC.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a fun journey. But anyway, the crowd here has been good. We met with some of our partners, right? So many people will remember that Dex Ventures is one of our strategic partners. So we had a good debrief with them. We had a lunch together with Aurora and Jessica from Dex Ventures today. It was a very good meeting. They were quite thrilled about the scope of our vision and what we're doing, and they were particularly when I began to describe the role and function of Rholang as a query language for content on chain. Rao can vouch for this. Ting can vouch for this. Aurora's eyes got big as saucers. She said that is a completely different vision than what I'm hearing from anybody else. This is really big. So that's from the horse's mouth. So I think people are starting to get it. And so we just need to keep plugging away and making sure that we keep telling the story and finding new and better ways to tell the story.
So Aurora has drank the Kool-Aid?
Yeah, she seems to have drunk the Kool-Aid. Yes. That's
amazing, having her aware of like what RChain can offer. Is that's a great
Isn't drunk the Kool-Aid kind of a negative phrase usually? Doesn't that imply something not so good?
I was good. I guess
I think it depends on the color of the Kool-Aid.
Ideally, it's not poison. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think actually at the booth, we were getting a lot of engagement from people who want to build or they were looking for what chain to build on. And I think we were able to make a successful case with many of them that we are the ideal chain for building anything metaverse. So that's what most of the traction at the booth was. And like Greg was talking about the query capabilities of Rholang and the fact that we can deal with data at a granular level, we were able to then turn it into a business model discussion as to what they can do with these features from the standpoint of what kind of business models they would be able to run that would not be possible anywhere else. And I think that messaging was very attractive to a whole bunch of people because they could see that these features actually mean something in terms of what they can or cannot do from a business standpoint on the chain.
There's also, there's also a synergistic, there's a happy accident that's working in our favor. There was a gentleman who works in advertising, and he sort of pigeonholed us really just with his questions about, how does advertising and the metaverse fit together? But one of the things that it really sparked was that there is going to be this new wave of advertising form factor. And we can be there with DAASL early in the game to just say, look, whether it's metaverse or other Web3, you really want your advertising to hit at the data layer and not at the form factor layer, whether it's the browser or something specific to say Oculus or what have you. Put it at the data layer so that you can go across all of those silos, all of those form factors, all of those different ways of capturing eyeballs and venues, and I think this is a very powerful message that we just happen to be in the right place at the right time if we are nimble enough to exploit it. So to me, it represents a significant opportunity. There are many people who are thinking about advertising in the metaverse. It's a natural thing to think about. And so if they're going to look at advertising the metaverse in a situation where the metaverse is blockchain enabled, we're already there with the right shape of those APIs.
And we have the opportunity, because it's so fresh, that we can use our architecture and norms to help change how advertising looks and what it does. I think there's a lot of people excited about the idea that instead of a little screen, you now have a 360 view to fill up with ads. And I'm not looking forward to that kind of a reality.
Welcome to RPO.
Indeed. All right. So I think that pretty much covers it. The board meeting this week was very short because it was happening right at the time that we were going into an invitation-only dinner. So the board members were gracious to give us the opportunity to conclude that early, so that I could focus on a presentation that we were only told about 5 minutes before it was supposed to begin. But anyway, it was so nothing was decided. There's just there is interesting development with respect to RPC and some support from the exchanges that we kind of need to talk about, not in this venue, but through closed door session. So very much like to have those conversations. the RPC stakeholder call was full of lots of good questions. So I recommend that anyone who has an interest in RPC go to those calls, which are basically 2 hours earlier. And the venue, I'm sure, has been posted in Discord and other places. So if you have questions about which Zoom room, do check that out. I'm sure Bill can send you, Bill or Steve Rostalvik can send you in the right direction. But we also want the RChain community to weigh in on the right approach there, because there's some interesting questions. I also want to remind people that we are going to begin to have a quarterly RChain ecosystem review. So where we bring, the RPC folks, the DAASL folks, the RChain folks, the DAPI folks, and whoever else are, sort of the engaged members of the RChain ecosystem. We want to bring those players to give them time to give us status updates as a community. Obviously, this could be very, very time consuming if we were to do this on a more frequent cadence, but a quarterly cadence seems about right. Likewise, we are pushing to have a quarterly strategic partner and significant stakeholder review. We broached this idea with our partners at Dex Ventures, and they felt this was the right thing to do, the natural thing to do, and it makes us more effective as a company, right? If we have to have one-on-one hand-holding calls with every single strategic partner and every single significant stakeholder, while I very much appreciate the high-touch approach, it simply will demand more cycles than we have available. So if we're going to be effective with the cycles that we've got, we need to bring our strategic partners and significant stakeholders together in one venue and have one conversation, as opposed to hundreds or thousands of them. And that way they can feel, again, our commitment to transparency and our commitment to community and self-organization. So any questions about that?
I don't have a question. I have a comment. I agree.
Yay. All right. Any other questions, comments? Peanuts you want to throw at us?
I think it's very important for the co-op to be tweeting about this. I'm going to send an email to you guys explaining a little more. I would like to try to get some content from you that we can tweet, just because, well, there's a lot of reasons, but, investors are on Twitter, and in the Metaweek's paperwork, they asked us to be, partnering with them online to talk about it. And I also just don't think that the co-op should take its audience for granted, because the co-op has 24,000 followers, which is not small really anymore. So I just think there's a lot of potential in that, and it's so easy. So I'm going to send you guys an email, and hopefully if you have any photos or anything, you can send it to me.
I absolutely agree with you. I've been a little bit remiss. I have taken a 47-day personal commitment to kind of take a step back from social media, but I do have an escape clause related to professional engagement, so I can.
Well, I
certainly
wonder if somebody
could
just take pictures of you and send it to us. You don't even have to do it yourself,
Awesome. Good thinking. Yeah. And so if there were any, I know ASVB took some photos, and we were definitely in the field of view of many of the event camera folks. So we can probably track them down and get them to send us important moments. So absolutely, you are spot on, Nora. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments?
I joined a little late. Do we have the week in review from Darryl?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Darryl.
All right, so here's the week in review for March 3rd to today, March 9th. On Thursday in the work study, Jim did some Rholang training. On Friday, Climate Coordination RCast, we discussed a new IPCC report, the water cycle, and a library of sounds from the ocean. We also discussed the book Speed and Scale by John Doerr, which Greg has suggested as required reading for any co-op member. I'll put a link to the Amazon on the chat. Let's see, on Saturday, they did cross-chain shard atomic exchange. On Monday in the Casper Standup, I don't have that yet from you, Greg.
Yes, I can speak to it, but I'll let you finish and then I'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay. And on Tuesday in the Communications Working Group, we discussed particulars around Metaweek and getting ready for Paris Blockchain Week. We also discussed updating the ecosystem page on RChain's website and the upcoming snapshot for the RPC airdrop. And this morning in the RChain Active Member Hangout, we talked with Joa Oliveira, who was involved from the scenario days, and got him up to speed on RChain publishing. And that takes us to now.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so with respect to the Casper stand-up, this week, again, I spoke a little bit about different conceptions of what tokens might be. Sort of a conceptual framework along which we can think about a variety of different kinds of token capabilities and token management. Since then, I've also fleshed out how this fits in with the metaverse. So just as a teaser for those people who have not yet seen the Casper stand-up, we can think of the history of the development of currency itself as one in which the monkeys learn an evolutionarily advantageous trick. So that the monkeys are already economic agents in the sense that they are trading things like herds of cattle or herds or livestock. They're trading bushels of grain and things of this nature. And at some point, one or many get the idea that they can put the items of trade in correspondence with some marker or other representation. And this, by the way, is at the heart of Cantor's realization about the cardinality of sets and how to count infinities. But the market is the practical content of Cantor's brilliant observation. So it happened millennia before Cantor was even a gleam in somebody's eye. And because of this evolution, this trick, so instead of bringing product to market, you bring chits or markers or tokens to market. And the evolutionary advantage is that, if you're bringing a wagon of grain to market, you could have inclement weather, right? And the grain spoils, or it gets soggy or soaked, or it gets, accidentally tossed in a river because you have an accident with the wagon, right? There are all kinds of risks in bringing the actual product to market. And especially if you don't know the trade volume or commitment ahead of time. In addition, a wagon of grain or a herd of livestock is an obvious target for thieves and brigands, right? So there's a security risk along with a risk to the product itself. And all of this happens before you even get to market and have to haggle and maybe don't walk away with a deal at all. So you might lose everything before you even get to the opportunity to trade. This is why the virtualization of product, whether it's good or services, was successful, because those monkeys who knew that trick had a big evolutionary advantage over the monkeys who didn't know that trick, right? That's why currency took a hold in the psyche of economic agents like Homo sapiens. It's like, so there's good sound information, theoretic argument as to why economics works, but there's an assumption that the only interior structure of tokens is that we can count them successfully. And if you look at the articulation of tokens over time, so from seashells to printed paper, special paper with special engravings, special paper with special engravings, and serial numbers. All of those things are all about defeating counterfeiting and other kinds of double spend attacks, right? But so they're articulating the structure of the actual token itself, but it's only to make it possible that the count of the token is somehow in correspondence with our notion of the valuation, i.e., how the token is connected to the product. So hopefully all of that makes sense. But as soon as our tokens, our currency becomes software, we can make software do anything we want within certain bounds. And so it'd be really awesome if we don't leave a lot of opportunities on the table because we hadn't thought through what are the possibilities here. And so I want to argue that you could increase, or let me take it from a different angle. If the interior structure of the token, like what we think of as the constituting the information content of the token is minimal, then all forces or dynamics related to the tokens must be done external to the tokens. So let me give you some examples. So this is not abstract. There's no way today to take 5 $1 notes and combine them physically and get a $5 note, right? But we know that 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals 5, if I counted my ones correctly, right? And so the combinatorics, the arithmetic, it could be done sort of internal to a data structure which we know of as the natural numbers, but it's not. We as the external economic agents have to do all that on behalf of the token, right? So you have to walk into an institution like a grocery store or a bank in order to convert 5 $1 bills to a $5 bill, or to convert a $5 bill to 5 $1 bills. That's all done external, but software doesn't have to work like that, right? So if we're virtualizing product, if we virtualize it to software, we can make the software have other attributes than just that you can count it. And that becomes important. So let's give some examples of how this works in the natural world, right? So sodium and chlorine, when you mix them together, there's no human agent that needs to get in the way of salt formation. They just do that on their own, right? Humans don't make salt, right? The nuclear structure of sodium and chlorine makes salt. Humans might claim to make salt because they mix the two elements together, but in reality, that chemical reaction was there long before humans ever existed. And so intrinsic structure gives rise to intrinsic agency and capability, which can be utilized in a variety of ways. The example I often give is the car, right? If you imagine tokens as like chemicals, then this can be used to manage inventory. So we can imagine that the car formation is like water formation or like carbohydrate formation. You need 4 tires, you need 1 chassis, you need 1 steering column, you need 4 or however many seats, right? And when you have all of those component elements or submolecules, then you can produce the car molecule. So you could imagine that for an auto manufacturer, they could have tokens that are more like chemicals, and that you when you mix the tokens together, they give you information about the supply that reflects their inventory, right? So when we mix our tire supply together with our chassis supply, together with our electronics supply, together with our interior supply, the reaction rules for that chemistry, quote unquote, when we mix those components in these ratios, that's going to give us cars in this ratio. So we can think of those as tokens, and now the tokens themselves have a kind of agency, and that agency allows us to predict the dynamics of our inventory, right? So this is very important, and another example, right? So that's when tokens have the complexity of say chemicals. The tokens could have the complexity of, say, organisms. And again, this is not weirdo theoretical stuff. People have been trading livestock for millennia, and they're very well aware that if you give half your herd to somebody else, if they tend that herd very well, it could be the size of the original herd in a short amount of time, and then you could be competing over grazing land or water resources. And so all of those dynamics have been a part of economic agency for quite some time. The virtualization of livestock as tokens is poorly matched to the actual dynamics of livestock. But if tokens are software, then the virtualization trick that the monkeys learned millennia ago can include more of the behavior of the things that they're virtualizing. Right, and now how does this fit into the metaverse? Well, the experience of a wallet today, a crypto wallet today, or just a bank website today, you're just watching numbers. But if you were in the metaverse, tending to your inventory could be like working in a virtual chemistry lab. If you were in the metaverse, tending to your inventory could be like or captured by the experience of tending a flock on a pasture. Right? These are also supply management activities. We just don't think of them as like wallets. So the Casper Standup goes into some of that and into some of the mathematics that supports that. And in particular, you can realize a lot of important machinery on top of the row calculus in order to make these kinds of things mathematically crisp and concrete, and then realize them in Rholang, and then put APIs on top of them. So hopefully this is making sense.
Greg, I have a question.
Sure.
Are you suggesting that a car is actually a side effect of the outcome of the interaction of tokens?
No, what I'm suggesting is that there's a bisimulation between the two systems. So the tokens don't cause this. However, what I do suggest is that the real economic agency is divided into syntax and semantics. So tokens tokens and message flow around tokens is the syntax. When the syntactic processing is complete, that results in a binding contract that binds the behavior of actual agents that then make commitments with respect to resources. That's my proposed definition for what economic agency actually is. Now, this is very different than what I read in economy papers. Whether you're reading early, von Neumann or Nash, or you're reading, Kenneth Arrow, or you're reading Paul Kruger or Rubini. None of them think about economic.
Or Hayek and Keynes, right?
Yeah, sure. Right. So none of those people are thinking about it the way someone who's a computationalist like me thinks about them, right? So there is a connection right? And the contract binds the real world behavior. So there is you could think of it as a causal connection, but it's not it's not causal in the same way that, you know, laws of physics are causal, right? You know, at some point, an agent could choose to break the contract, whereas it's very difficult for a photon to break the speed of light barrier, or at least in our current understanding of physics, right? So it's a different kind of agency, if that makes sense.
Well, I guess my question, and maybe this isn't appropriate for this forum, I mean, we're over time already. But I guess maybe my question is, you're describing a system of interaction, and every system has side effects. And I was just wondering whether or not that car was a side effect of the system, and to try and dig into that a little bit.
So that's a view. It would be the view, like, to put words in Simon Peyton Jones's mouth. That would be the view of someone who's a strict functionalist like Simon. You would view that as a side effect. I don't see the system I don't see computation in functional terms anymore. I left functional programming behind a long time ago. But I do see it. I do see that there's a relationship, and that relationship is captured precisely by simulation. So if the token system is going to have further interior structure that allows it to be more computationally rich in terms of its own intrinsic dynamics, then that only has utility to the extent that the dynamics of the computations affected by the tokens there's a simulation between that and the actual behavior of the distribution of resources conducted by the economic agents.
So I don't want to belabor this conversation because, like I said, we're over time already. But I have a saying in my life that out of chaos comes order, and it seems like what you're talking about relates to that somewhat.
That's correct. Yes, that's right. So I have created a draft position paper that describes these ideas, and I've sort of advertised them on the last two Casper stand-ups. So that was where this fit in terms of the discussion. With that, I'd like to thank everyone for their time, and especially for staying the 15 minutes over. And I'm very excited about what RChain is doing, and I'm very proud of all the work that the team is doing. And I'm very excited and proud to be a member of the RChain community. And so please stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you on the other side.
Jim, your audio is very, very choppy.
I couldn't hear a word, Jim.
You still sound like you're in the Matrix, Jim.
The airdrop is not happening. The snapshot is happening. I can't remember the exact date, but
March 11th.
I think
the exact date is New York City time zone, noon, this Friday.
Fantastic.
The exact block number will be announced tomorrow in the Discord channels.
Wunderbar. Thank you all. Ciao, ciao.